I want to continue to explore this idea of whether or not this Saturday in Fayetteville is a trap game for LSU, which it is. I mean, look, I guess it's a trap game in terms of how we traditionally define these things, where there's a lot on the line for LSU. You got an Arkansas team that just lost to Liberty, so like the ability to overlook them is very easy. As we said, it's 11-8 kickoff. It's going to be colder than you used to, yada, 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 all of these sorts of things. But, Jake, I got to be honest, I am feeling very confident about this game. And I understand that if you were to take the 30,000-foot view and we did not cover this team at all, and let's say we were from Wyoming and we just looked at this game, you would almost, I mean, you might even blind bet Arkansas. But that's a weird line, considering that LSU's top 10 in the country, going to win the West. Arkansas is average. They have an awful defense. Like, why is that only 3? What's going on there? Vegas must know something. So it stinks. I get it. It's a stinky line. However, I believe that the difference here is, and what Vegas is maybe not accounting for, because I don't know how you could account for this, the difference is kind of the Brian Kelly factor and how LSU has been winning. Because as we told you, there's nothing fluky or unsustainable about LSU's success over the past month. Like, this is not a hot streak. It is not luck. It is a good scheme mixed with discipline, execution due to extended time on task, right? You've seen sustainable growth every single game. And at the end of the day, Jake, I think the main point is it's process-based. Like, the whole point of having a process, and think about it, we can all have one, right? But they can be good or bad. But we have more than enough evidence, not just this year, but over Brian Kelly's career, to tell you that his process pays positive dividends. But, like, the whole point of having a process, Jake, that you're married to try to develop is to help to weather the ebbs and flows of the season, right? Like, you get blown out by Tennessee, then you got to go to the swamp immediately. That's a bad spot. How do you handle it? You do the same things that you did every other week, and if you focus on that, the results will follow. Like, why do you lose trap games? Who loses trap games? Teams that are poorly coached, teams that are not consistent, and teams that do not deal with adversity well. What did I just say that applies to this LSU team? I see none of those elements in this team. So, no, I think you should approach this game confidently, and I think I do not see the Tigers falling into the trap.
Yeah, we talked about their leadership yesterday. We talked about all the veteran players that they have on this team. We talked about 2 of their most veteran players being former Arkansas Razorbacks. And I do think that goes a long way. I mean, you have Joe Fouché, you have Greg Brooks, who can kind of, throughout the week, let them know, like, what kind of players are on the other side, what kind of, running back Arkansas has, what kind of offensive line, kind of some of the stuff, like, hey, these dudes are good. I went against these guys every day in practice, all of that. So, for me, like, you have the leadership in place to be able to handle a situation like this because, yeah, it is the classic trap game or whatever, sleepy Saturday, whatever you want to call it, because you're going on the road. It's an early kick. It's going to be cold. It's going to be a team that just lost to a group of 5 team, a team that's not even in a conference, an independent team. Although Liberty's good, right? That's going to be kind of some of the mindset if you allow it to creep in. Like, also, you don't know if KJ Jefferson is going to play in this game. Right, because Sam Pittman yesterday said KJ threw some on Monday, not much at all yesterday. That's still kind of a fluid situation. I will say this, Malik Hornsby had a really good week of practice. The team is confident in him.
I mean, if Hornsby plays, it's a wrap. Because, I mean, quite literally, Jake, the segment I wanted to do next is all about KJ Jefferson and how concerned you should be about him. Like, if we agree if Hornsby plays, there's 0% chance that Arkansas will win this game.
Yeah, I mean, KJ Jefferson's a really good player. He was an all-SEC type of player coming into the season. At SEC Media Day, a lot of people that said Arkansas was the 3rd best team used him as their prime example of why. They thought he could really be special. And he flashed early in the season, and obviously he's dealt with injuries most of the season, certainly in the middle and the back half. So
his numbers are still pretty incredible.
Yeah, I know.
I was very surprised.
But he has battled through injury ever since. Was it A&M game?
Yeah, I think so. I just thought that he had maybe been a bit more middle of the pack this year. But then you look, he's actually the 2nd highest rated quarterback in the SEC. He's thrown 17 touchdowns, just 3 picks. He throws for 250 a game. He adds on 50 rushing each game. He's completing 66% of his passes, 9 yards per attempt. So, like, yeah, KJ Jefferson has been spectacular this year. And when you look at LSU, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, right? You dominate maybe the two best, not maybe. Well, no, because Hooker. You dominate two of the best three quarterbacks you face this year, Will Rogers and Bryce Young. But then Robbie Ashford has, some modicum of success against you, maybe more than you would have expected, though after the early shots, you shut him down. And Anthony Richardson probably has a bit more success than you would have wanted. You allow him to get that big 80-yard touchdown run and everything to make the fourth quarter interesting again. And then Hendon Hooker just kind of whooped your ass. So how do you feel like this LSU defense matches up with a KJ Jefferson?
Look, with the game plan they had last week against Bryce Young is not by any means the best running quarterback in the country. But I do believe Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the pocket in the country at finding a way to get the football off, finding a way to get in a comfortable situation when it starts out uncomfortable for him. And LSU's game plan against him last week was as good as I've ever seen against Bryce Young, right? We broke down a couple of videos. Harold Perkins in the spy, B.J. Ojulari. The one where it's like you have the three guys on the left side of the defensive line crashing all to the right. B.J. Ojulari is the edge player on the right. He comes all the way back to contain Bryce Young. He gets a hit on Bryce Young, forces a hurry, gets a pressure, and it's an incomplete pass. Like, basically, Bryce Young looks like he just spikes it into the ground.
Yeah.
That is a game plan. And Flynn broke it down yesterday. We were talking, he's like, this isn't a situation where you're trying to get a sack. Now, if a sack comes from it, that's great. This pressure is designed to try to force Bryce Young off his spot. And that's exactly what it did, because you see three guys slanting the other way. So you roll to your right. You have no idea that B.J. Ojulari from this edge is coming all the way back around.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that I was talking about yesterday, where Perk ends up looping around in the middle and then spills him right into Ojulari along with everybody else.
Perk goes inside the tackle.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. He goes inside, gets some of that interior pressure,
and so
spills Young that way, and then Ojulari's just sitting there waiting on him.
You call that,
yeah,
right, to confuse the quarterback. And that's just Bryce Young, that doesn't happen to him. And so for me, it's about the game plan, and it's about the execution of the plan. Right? It doesn't matter what style of quarterback you're facing. Like, you're not going to face someone who's better in the pocket than the guy you just faced and the guy you had 27 hurries on.
So if we're always worried about the players maybe not locking in and being ready for this Arkansas team, do you think there's any chance that, like, the coaches, after all the buildup over Alabama, they've been working on it forever, they have the 2 weeks.
Look,
do they go half-stepping into this game plan?
I know.
Just asking a question.
No. I know defensively. I can answer this quickly. Matt House is an NFL guy.
Yeah. He's
in the NFL.
Week-to-week battles.
It is week to week.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you played the Chiefs and then you played the Jags. You knew, or he's on the Chiefs. Okay, give me the Saints.
Fair.
If you played the Saints and then you played the Jags, whoever it was, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you go like Bills, Jags.
You had to go like just quickly.
Yeah.
And you knew, okay, the Jags might be one and whatever. Man, they got Trevor Lawrence. They got James Robinson at the time. They got, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you have Sunday players, and so you weren't allowed to sit there off of a successful week the week before. In the NFL, you got to get ready every single week. And so that's what Matt House has lived in for the last couple of years.
Also, remember, I said that I understand that the line is stinky, but Brian Kelly is the outlier in all of this. And that's because, he told you November is for contenders. And what is Brian Kelly's record in November, Jake? He hasn't lost since, 2017?
2017 is the last time.
That was Coach O's first year at LSU.
Yeah.
To give you an idea of how long it's been.
I still lived in Shreveport.
In November. You still lived in Shreveport when he
last
lost in November?
The last time he lost.
Wow. I didn't have kids. Wow. What? I didn't have a single kid.
I still had 4.
Last time Brian Kelly, that's even weirder. Man, I didn't have a single kid last time Brian Kelly lost in November. So, no, I'm not concerned. I think LSU takes care of business. I think that Arkansas they do some things well. Like, look, their sack numbers are good. But when I see
they got sorry to cut you off, but you mentioned the sack numbers. Those numbers did come early in the season. They popped off early, and they were leading the country in sacks the first 3 weeks. And since then, if you took the first, I know you can't do it, and I actually hate doing it. If you take the first 3 weeks out, they haven't done as much.
No, and I mean, what I was going to say too is, Jake, I'm not concerned if I see high sack numbers, but I also see the worst pass defense in the SEC. Like, that tells me, yeah, maybe you're selling out to create some negative plays, but you are giving up a ton of big plays. And if there's one thing that this LSU team is just getting better and better at, it's executing and creating those big plays. I feel like this is going to be a really big game for the receivers. Certainly guys like Dwight McLaughlin are going to be very motivated against some of their former teammates. But
that pass defense had been motivated to stop anybody this year.
Well, maybe they were motivated. Whether or not they could do it, no, they have been awful. So and then like Jake said, with Matt House and this LSU defense and everything, showing you how good you have them. So I feel great about LSU Arkansas. What do you think? Go ahead and put your comments in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat. Defensively, does anybody scare you on this Arkansas team?
All right, it's funny you asked. I was just actually doing that during the break. All right, so Landon Jackson's somebody that LSU fans know.
Yeah.
He started his career here, didn't play on defense. I believe he only played on punt team, but he's grading out at a 55.6. So he's had some moments, but he struggled a little bit. Zach Williams, probably the best player along their defensive front. When you look at linebacker, we all know the name Bumper Pool because, one, it's
a great name.
Great name, unique name, and he's been at Arkansas since Darren McFadden was there.
And I mean, he's a white guy with a neck roll, right? Does he have a neck roll?
Does Bumper have look, I'm
he
sure.
Feels like he has a neck roll.
I'm sure at some point in his 7-year career, Bumper Pool has had a neck roll.
If Bumper Pool doesn't have a neck roll, that'll be the biggest upset of the weekend.
You have Henry, who was linebacker there. You had Drew. Was it Drew Morgan that was linebacker there for a long time as well? And they all kind of were the same guy. Really good players, by the way. Drew Sanders is the guy to look out for. He's the transfer from Alabama. He's the guy that's got 6.5 sacks. He was the guy that was popping off early in the season. So he's somebody that is a very, very good player. But you asked about the secondary. It's wild. No neck roll?
No neck roll.
You disappointed?
I'm a little upset. That's okay, though. Sorry, continue.
When you look at the secondary, it's hard because the grades are actually they're pretty good. They haven't been awful, but we know their secondary and how many yards they give up. Like their free safety grades out at a 71%. Now their strong safety, Blair, grades out at 52%. Then you look at Dwight McLaughlin, somebody we know very well, 72%. The other corner, Hudson Clark, 77%. But your nickel, 45.4.
It still doesn't seem to pass the sniff test. It seems like there's a bit of an odd.
Well, you got two guys that have failing grades. And so in the secondary, as you know, T, of the 5 guys, if you've got 2 that are struggling that bad, a good offense and a good offensive coordinator will find those guys.
That's fair. I guess it's not unlike the disconnect of the LSU offensive line actually being kind of fantastic, but not like grading out in any way that would jump off the page or kind of blow you away.
Offensive line, I would say, is probably the toughest graded position. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to rack my brain. I mean, quarterback's probably pretty tough, but I definitely think the offensive line, to your point. But that's what their secondary grades out at. And to your point about KJ Jefferson, I mean, he's still at an 89%. That's high.
Yeah, no,
that's incredibly high.
KJ's been fantastic. He's been fantastic.
The drop-off from him to Hornsby is 89.4 to 64.3.
I mean, it sounds crazy. As Arkansas struggles, I mean, do they just really miss Traylon Burks that much?
That's everybody that you talk to that covers Arkansas football, that's the first thing they go to.
Yeah. I mean, the first couple of games looked like maybe Trey Knox was going to be that guy when he's out there like 6'7", running around, just flying down the field against Cincinnati. But he just hasn't developed as dominantly. I mean, you look at the receiving core, it actually, Jake, doesn't feel too dissimilar from Alabama in that nobody really jumps off of the page. You know, you got Hazelwood and Landers over 500 yards in the season. Then you got Knox, Jackson, Sanders, Rocket. That is all at about 220 around there. Warren Thompson, 178. So kind of a smattering here or there, but no dominant playmaker in the receiving game. Now, Rocket Sanders could be defined as a dominant offensive player. I mean, it is kind of crazy. They have the second highest rated quarterback in the SEC and the leading rusher in the SEC, averaging 120 a game. It feels like So where's the hang up? Is it just the defense? Like, it feels like this is a team that should be a bit better.
It's receiver and it's defense.
Yeah.
Because when you look at their offensive line, it's pretty stout. I mean, that's how you have the leading rusher in the SEC. And Rocket Sanders is a quality back. And so that's something that you have to contain if you're LSU. It was shocking how poorly Arkansas's offensive line played against Liberty last week. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the tape. And Liberty was doing some very creative things. They had the old walk-around defense. Nobody was lining up where they ended up. And Arkansas struggled with it. Okay. I mean, look, T, I mean, it looked like you were turning on a high school game, which I'm not even saying that in a bad way. Like, that's what it was. It was high school Harry stuff. You're walking around. Hey, everybody just got it here, and then they know where they're supposed to end up. And so Arkansas never really adjusted to that, and their offensive line struggled mightily in this game against Liberty because they couldn't figure out the scheme. And so, look, it's a unit that when you look at their grades, 74, 74, 79, 81, and 80. That's their offensive line grades.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's very as we just talked about how hard it is to grade positively as an offensive line. Are you at all worried about Rocket Sanders having some rushing success here against LSU? LSU's rush defense, nothing. I mean, it's how has it been this year? If we really stop and think about it, it's weird, right? Like, it was really good against Alabama, but then actually they ended up with pretty good numbers because of some chunk plays. So I don't know. I mean, if I'm trying to craft a path to victory for Arkansas, I believe it would have to be some sort of ball control style where KJ and Sanders win that time of possession battle pretty significantly by moving the ball on the ground. Like, Rocket's a guy who they don't even give him 20 carries a game. He's right at 19, but he averages 6.5 yards a carry. He's over 1,000. Like I said, leads the SC 120 per game, 7 scores. Do you feel good about LSU shutting down that rushing attack?
Well, we saw what LSU was able to do against Ole Miss, and Ole Miss was one of the top rushing teams in the country when they came in to Tiger Stadium. LSU's in the middle of the pack in the SEC as far as rush defense. They give up 141 yards per game. That's right behind Arkansas at 140. So we've seen them give up yards, but not a lot of points maybe on the ground. They've given up some chunk plays, like you said.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've had a couple of long hitters, 60-yard runs that they've given up, and they've tightened up in the red area.
So, to your point, right now, Ole Miss and Arkansas, top 2 rushing teams in the SEC. Arkansas averages 230. Ole Miss averages 267 a game. Against LSU, that was 116. And it's not just because they fell behind, because for much of the game they were not behind. Yeah. They just couldn't run the ball. So, okay, that makes you feel good. Like, if you can shut down Jackson Dart and that Ole Miss rushing attack, you should be able, and Judkins and all them, should be able to do the same here.
I mean, T, we're not on the team. We're not coaches. We're no longer players. No. So we can say this. Just go win the game.
Yeah. 100%.
Like, everything 100%. That we're talking about, early kick, on the road, it's going to be cold. Who cares if it's going to be cold?
Dude, I agree.
Like, if you're not an offensive player, put on some sleeves, put on a mock turtleneck, and go out there and play the game. And I think they will.
Literally, the only people that the cold weather matters for are the backups. That's the only people it sucks for. Like, if you're playing, it does not matter. You stay warm, you're fine. I've been a young player not playing on an Arkansas sideline, and it is miserable. I mean, it sucks because you're not used to it, and you're just kind of standing there and shivering the whole time. But if you're playing, it is what it is. You're fine. Like, you're fine. And also, if you're an offensive lineman, don't wear sleeves.
If you're a running back, you can't. Like, it's literally not allowed.
Well, yeah, you'll fumble the ball. Yeah. So, no sleeves.
Is
it toxic masculinity? Yes. I don't care.
I don't care.
Don't wear sleeves. You got to be a man.
20,
Even if you're a backup, you're not allowed to wear sleeves. If you're no lineman. I don't care if the skill guys want to do it.
2018.
Mario would definitely wear sleeves. I see you smiling back.
Oh,
there.
Dude, Mario.
He's judging me for this not wearing sleeves take.
There were some cold games where I had some sleeves.
Yeah. Danny, you're definitely a sleeves guy as well. 1,000%. You're shaking your head, but I know you, and you would absolutely have sleeves on. I mean, am I wrong?
No, both those fellas back there would have sleeves on.
Yeah.
Without question.
Big Fave just texting in to hell with y'all, talking about 4-degree weather and under. I'm wearing sleeves.
Big Fave, like, you're soft.
Also, like, D lineman.
It is what it is.
D lineman, do whatever you want. I don't care. Y'all fancy yourself a bit more of spotlight guys anyway. Okay, here on the offensive line, it's just about toughness and grit. No sleeves allowed. That was a hard and fast rule back in the day.
2018 in Fayetteville, and now Arkansas scored 14 wild points at the end. The game wasn't as close as 24-17, but LSU came out. Their defensive backs came out, and it was cold. It was cold. They came out no shirts for warm-ups.
Yeah, that's
kind of energy I need.
That's the sicko stuff that we're looking for, dude. So no, I agree with you. Go win the game. No. All this is excuses. And again, like we said earlier, the teams that get tripped up in situations like this are teams that are poorly coached, teams that are inconsistent, and teams that don't have a great process in place. And so they get too high and they get too low. And teams that crumble at adversity. And again, none of that applies to this year's LSU team. The last month has been consistent. They obviously have a great process, and you've already helped them. You've already seen it firsthand, how it can help them deal with ebbs and flows. And we all know how they respond to adversity. And it's very well, again, unflappable. Word of the week, okay? So go win the game this Saturday. Bottom line.